A second division team knocked them out of the cup, no trophy in 2 seasons, and they began losing their identity. At the centre of it all, Florentino Perez. For decades, Florentino Perez was the smartest president in football, the man who built La Decima, the man who learned from the Beckham era. But on the night Mbappé signed, something changed. So what did Florentino forget? And why is this Galactico era ending exactly like his first? This is the story of how Real Madrid lost all respect. Let's go back to the beginning. To understand how Real Madrid lost their aura, you have to first understand how absolutely terrifying that aura used to be. Between 2014 and 2024, Real Madrid won the Champions League 6 times, 6. In a competition that 32 of Europe's best clubs enter every year, where the eventual winner has to beat at least 4 of them in knockout football, Madrid did it 6 times in 11 seasons. That isn't a run, that's a hostile takeover. The 2024 final at Wembley was almost embarrassing in its inevitability. Dortmund, brave and overmatched, played the better football for an hour. They hit the post. They missed sitters. And then, exactly when Madrid decided the joke was over, Carvajal nodded one in from a corner. Vinicius added the second. Trophy lifted. Confetti released. Whatever. That was the energy. They did not celebrate like a team that had just won the Champions League. They celebrated like a family renewing its Netflix subscription, a formality, and the squad behind that win was already the envy of Europe. Bellingham had become the best midfielder in the world. Vinicius had cemented himself as the most feared winger on the planet. Courtois, Kroos, Modric were still pulling the strings. Then Madrid presented Mbappé. The dream was simple. Mbappé, Vinicius, Bellingham, Rodrigo. Pundits were not debating whether they would win the next Champions League. They were debating how many they would win in a row. So what happened? How does a dynasty become a punchline in less than 2 years? Buckle up, because the universe has been taking notes. Now for the first cracks. The 2024 to 2025 season was supposed to be a coronation. Mbappé's first year, Bellingham's second. Vinicius coming off a Ballon d'Or robbery so blatant Madrid boycotted the ceremony. The squad was loaded. The manager was Carlo Ancelotti, the most decorated coach in Champions League history. Everything pointed up. It went sideways immediately. By October, fans were already noticing something was off. Mbappé was not fitting. He drifted into Vinicius' space on the left, refused to play as a true number 9, and sulked when the ball did not come to him. Bellingham, the previous season's hero, started looking ordinary. The midfield, missing Kroos who had just retired, had no rhythm. And then came the season that would end Carlo Ancelotti's second spell at the club. In La Liga, Hansi Flick's Barcelona did not just beat Madrid, they humiliated them. 16 goals across the campaign. 16. In every single Clásico, home and away, Barcelona won. In the Supercopa final, Barcelona ran riot. In the Copa del Rey final, same story. It was the first time in the history of the fixture that one club had won every Clásico in a single season. And then the Champions League quarter-final. Real Madrid versus Arsenal. That Arsenal. The Arsenal that has spent 2 decades being the punchline of European football. The Arsenal that bottles. The Arsenal whose fans had spent years politely asking to please be let into the conversation. Arsenal beat them 5-1 on aggregate. 5-1. The Galacticos, the kings of Europe, the holders of the trophy, were knocked out by a club that had not been to a Champions League final since 2006. At the Bernabeu, to whistles, to boos, to the sound of an ERA dying in real time. Florentino Perez sat in his box with the face of a man watching his own house burn down while reading the insurance policy. He sacked Ancelotti the next week. Polite handshakes. Nice statement. Thanks for the memories. And the new era was going to be led by a young, intense Spanish coach who had just taken Bayer Leverkusen to an unbeaten Bundesliga title. Xabi Alonso, the chosen one, the next Guardiola, the next... Well, we will get to that. Which brings the Galactico problem. Before we go any further, we need to talk about the central, tragic, slightly hilarious paradox of this whole project. Because every sacking, every Clasico drubbing, every Bayern goal, every Bernabeu whistle traces back to one fundamental error. Mbappe and Vinicius do not play together. They occupy together. They share a postcode. They wear the same shirt. They do not play together. And the data is brutal. Across 119 matches, Real Madrid have scored 262 goals. Mbappe and Vinicius, the two most expensive attackers on the planet, sharing a front line at the biggest club on the planet, have combined for 16 of them. 16 out of 262. That is 6%. Mbappe has assisted Vinicius 4 times. Vinicius has assisted Mbappe 12 times. They exchange, on average, 7 passes per game. 7. There are central defenders who pass to each other more than that. And here is the truly delicious part. Real Madrid, statistically, are a better team when one of them is missing. Higher win rate, more goals scored, fewer conceded. The team plays faster, presses harder, transitions cleaner. It is like watching a band finally agree to fire the second lead singer who keeps trying to play guitar. Both players want the same thing: the ball, the left side, the final touch. Vinicius locks down the left wing, isolates defenders, beats them, creates and finishes. That is his game. Mbappe, who at PSG was the same kind of player on the same kind of wing, gets shoved into the middle, where his aerial game is weak, his back-to-goal play is allergic, and his off-ball movement to create space for others is, generously speaking, conceptual. Instead of complementing each other, they cancel each other out. Two soloists, no band. Defensively, don't even get me started. Neither of them tracks back. Neither presses with intent. When Madrid lose the ball, the rest of the team is left to defend with what amounts to 9 men. Managers love to call this a good problem to have. Opposing teams call it dinner. Vinicius, even in this disaster of a season, still delivers. 19 goals, 10 assists, scores in the Clasico, scores in the derby, turns up in Europe. He's still that guy. Mbappe, different story. 3 La Liga goals in the last 3 months. The highest paid player in Real Madrid's history is going through stretches where Cucurella, a left back at Chelsea, has more league goals than him. 41 goals in 41 games overall. The numbers, on paper, look like a star. The eye test tells you something else. With Mbappe on the pitch, the team looks slow, disconnected, forced. Without him, somehow Madrid beat Celta 2-1, beat Manchester City 3-0, beat Elche 4-1, beat Atletico 3-2. Then he comes back and they lose to Bayern. Draw with Girona, draw with Betis, lose to Bayern again. So, the question every Madridista is whispering at 3 o'clock in the morning: is Kylian Mbappe actually making Real Madrid worse? And if he is, what on earth do you do about it? Now for Florentino's ghost. Florentino Perez has done this before, the exact same mistake, with the exact same logic, and the exact same inability to learn from it. To understand the Mbappe era, you need to understand the Beckham era. And to understand the Beckham era, you need to understand a quiet French defensive midfielder named Claude Makelele. Back in the early 2000s, Florentino's first Galacticos were the most glamorous team ever assembled. Zidane, Figo, Ronaldo, Roberto Carlos, Raul. Then he added Beckham. The shirt sold like oxygen. The brand was a religion. And in 2003, Florentino made one decision that, in retrospect, looks like the most expensive shrug in football history. He let Makelele leave. Makelele wasn't flashy. He didn't sell shirts in Tokyo. He just won the ball, started the play, gave structure to a team full of egos. He was the floor that the ceiling stood on. And when he left for Chelsea, where he proceeded to win 2 Premier Leagues and quietly invent the modern defensive midfielder role, Real Madrid's house collapsed. 3 trophyless seasons. The attackers stopped defending. Spaces opened everywhere. Teams started ripping them apart. It got so bad that after a loss in Mallorca of all places, Florentino resigned in disgrace. When he came back in 2009, he made a public promise. He would never again sign names without solving needs. Never again build the marketing campaign before the team. Never again forget that football, the actual sport, requires a midfield. And from La Decima to the 4-5 run with Zidane, he kept that promise. Casemiro arrived, Kroos arrived, Modric was kept. The midfield was the engine, and around it the stars could be stars. It worked beautifully. Then Mbappe arrived. Modric and Kroos left, one through retirement and one through the door. And Florentino, who had spent 15 years convinced he had learned the lesson, looked at his squad and decided the solution was somehow more attackers. It is the same film, same projector, same audience, just remastered. Madrid's current midfield has Bellingham, who is an attacking 8, Güler, who is an advanced 10, Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Valverde, workers, athletes, useful pieces. None of them, not one, are conductors. None of them dictate tempo. None of them are Modric, who could put the ball on a postage stamp from 40 yards while being kicked by 2 opponents. They lost their architects and replaced them with bricklayers. Good bricklayers. But you cannot win the Champions League by laying bricks. And there is the second Beckham problem. The Galactico of 2026 is not Mbappe alone. It is Mbappe and Vinicius. 2 stars, same space, same instincts, same need to be the protagonist. Beckham and Figo, 20 years on, with better public relations teams. The mistake did not happen in July 2024. The mistake happened the moment Florentino convinced himself that he, uniquely, could make 2 number 10s share a number 9 shirt. Careful what you wish for, Mr. President. The gods, as we will see, have a particular sense of humour. Then came the puppet coach. Xabi Alonso lasted 7 months. Let that number sit there. 7 months. Madrid had not sacked a manager mid-season in over a decade. The club's whole internal mythology was built on the idea that you do not panic. The club does not do mid-season exits. Until they did. And here is the part that makes you laugh in the way you laugh when you stub your toe at a funeral. Xabi Alonso, in his first 34 games as Real Madrid manager, had exactly the same record as Hansi Flick in his first 34 games as Barcelona manager. 25 wins, 4 draws, 5 losses. Identical, pixel for pixel. Hansi Flick stayed. Xabi Alonso got fired. Why? Because the numbers do not tell you who is actually running the dressing room. And in the Real Madrid dressing room, the manager is a guest. Xabi went in with an idea. His idea. A possession-based, high-press, vertical Bayer Leverkusen identity. A clear hierarchy on the pitch. Mbappe as a true 9. Vinicius asked to defend. Bellingham held in a defined role. Discipline, structure, demands. Certain players did not want to buy in. The dressing room, full of multi-100 million euro contracts and Ballon d'Or campaigns, decided collectively that this new guy with the soft voice and the Leverkusen ideas could be politely ignored. And when the results dipped, when the heavyweights signalled their displeasure to the people upstairs did what they always do. They protected the players. And they sacked the manager. January 11th, 2026, Barcelona win the Spanish Super Cup. January 12th, 2026, Xabi Alonso is gone. Not for results, not for performances, for the crime of trying to coach Real Madrid. So they replaced him with Alvaro Arbeloa, a loyal club legend, a Castilla coach, a man whose primary qualification is that he is not going to ask the heavyweights to do anything they do not want to do. He is a placeholder, a symbolic figure, not a coach, a mascot in a tracksuit, and the results, predictably, are what happens when your manager is a mascot. 23 games, 13 wins, 2 draws, 8 losses, a 60% win rate, the worst Real Madrid have managed since 2018. Conceded in 10 straight matches, the longest such run in 22 years. The last time Real Madrid could not keep a clean sheet for 10 games in a row, Florentino Perez was in his first spell, and the man we now refer to as the late, great Claude Makélélé was about to be sold to Chelsea. History does not repeat, it rhymes. And then occasionally, it just stares at you and says the same line again, slowly, in case you missed it the first time. Next, The transfer window that never was. After firing Ancelotti, Real Madrid did identify the right problem: the defence. Ageing, inconsistent, exposed. They went into the summer of 2025 with a clear priority. 3 of the 4 signings were defenders. Total spend, roughly €120 million. Dean Huijsen from Bournemouth, €62 million. Alvaro Carreras from Benfica, €50 million. Trent Alexander-Arnold, technically free, but Madrid still paid Liverpool between €5 and €10 million to release him in time for the Club World Cup. These were not panic buys. The plan made sense on paper. Modern, technically gifted defenders, all under 30, all with upside. And then the biggest game of the season came. Real Madrid versus Bayern Munich Champions League knockout stages, the kind of night that defines an era. Of those 3 signings, only one started: Trent. Huijsen, the €62 million centre-back, did not even come off the bench. Carreras, the €50 million left back, was invisible. That single team sheet tells you the entire story of the season. The new manager did not trust the rebuild. He went with Mendy at left back, a player who had barely featured all year. He went with Rudiger and Militao, the old guard, the names that the dressing room respected. Huijsen had started the season brilliantly. With Rudiger and Militao both injured, he stepped in, looked composed, drew comparisons to a young Sergio Ramos. Then the senior players came back, and the moment the pressure games arrived, Xabi Alonso quietly moved him to the bench. Once Arbeloa took over, Huijsen barely got minutes. He got booed. He lost his place. Carreras followed the same arc. Looked promising in pre-season, exposed in big games. The derby, Bayern. Repeatedly punished by elite wingers, whistled by his own fans. Trent had injuries. His passing range, his vision from right back, all world class. His defending was a different conversation. And then Mastantuono, the young Argentine, signed with great fanfare. He has contributed almost nothing. The club will tell you he needs time. Maybe he does. He is 18, but he is also costing €45 million. Apart from Huijsen, who at least has a future, none of the new signings have actually improved the team. 3 out of 4 in their first season have gone backwards. Players running the dressing room, a manager with no authority, signings that did not fix the real problems, a defence conceding in 10 straight games, a midfield without conductors, a front line that does not connect. That is not a rebuild, mate. That is a controlled demolition. There is a thing Real Madrid have been famous for the better part of a decade that has now quietly disappeared. It used to be the entire point of the club. They were not always the most beautiful team. They were rarely the best on paper. But in the moments that mattered, the moments that broke other clubs, they did something nobody else could do. They stood up. They fought. They scored a 92nd minute goal in the Champions League quarter-final. Then they did it again the next round. Then they did it again the next year. 3 consecutive Champions League knockout ties. They came back from the dead in against PSG, against Chelsea, against Manchester City. The biggest budgets in Europe all turned into footnotes by a club that simply refused to be eliminated. That was the identity, ambition, responsibility, fight. The badge demanded it, and the players almost mystically delivered. Now look at this team. They are losing 1-0 to Espanyol, drawing 1-1 against Betis, getting eliminated by Alaves, a second division side in the Copa del Rey. April 4th, 2026, Mallorca beat them 2-1. April 7th, Bayern beat them 2-1 at the Bernabeu. April 10th, a 1-1 draw against Girona. April the 15th, Bayern again, 4-3 at the Allianz Arena, Champions League over. April the 24th, a 1-1 with Betis, La Liga over. 6 matches, 1 win, 13 goals conceded. The worst run, by every metric available, in over 20 years. The thing that should terrify Madridistas the most is the body language. The team is not fighting. They are not down 2-1 and pressing for an equaliser with the Bernabeu in full voice. They are down 2-1 and walking, casually, looking at each other, waiting for a substitution. They have, somewhere along the line, gotten used to losing. And worse than that, They have gotten used to losing without being particularly bothered about it. The training ground, by every credible report, is a country club. The dressing room is a faction war. And the players who used to define the club's mentality, the Modrics, Kroos and Ramos, are gone, with no replacement willing or capable of holding the standard. The fans, who have an unusually long memory for these things, are done. They are pointing, openly now, at Florentino Perez. They see a president who keeps insisting the squad is good enough, who keeps backing individual stars over the collective, who keeps treating the club like a brand to be optimised rather than a team to be coached. 3 weaknesses, all at once. The attack, no proper number 9, total dependence on 2 players who do not combine, almost no presence in the box. The defence, ageing, inconsistent, no leader, conceding in every game. The midfield, no control, no architects, no clarity in build-up since Modric and Kroos left. That is not a slump. That is a team without spine. And here is the part that should haunt every member of Real Madrid's board. Nobody is afraid of them anymore. Arsenal eliminated them with a 5-goal aggregate. Alaves, a second division team, knocked them out of the cup. Betis, Girona, Mallorca, Elche, all teams that used to come to the Bernabeu hoping for a respectable score, now come expecting points. The aura is gone. The reckoning has arrived. So what happens now? Real Madrid cannot, structurally, go into the next season looking like this. The squad needs at least 2 new centre-backs, one of them world-class. The midfield needs a conductor, a real one, the kind of player who can dictate the tempo of a Champions League quarter-final at the age of 32. The forward line needs honesty. Either Mbappe becomes a true number 9, or one of the two, him or Vinicius, leaves. There is no version of this where they continue as is and the team improves. And the manager, whoever ends up being the long-term answer, needs something the last 2 have not been given. Authority, the right to actually coach, the backing of a president who is willing to side with the manager against the heavyweights when it matters, none of which, based on Florentino Perez's track record over the past 24 months, looks particularly likely. Which brings us back to the start, to Wembley, to July 1st, 2024, to the photographs of Carvajal and Vinicius lifting the 15th Champions League, and the entire footballing world conceding for what felt like the 100th time in a decade that Real Madrid had simply won again, as they always did, as they always would. If you had told a single person in that stadium that this team would, within 20 months, finish second to Barcelona by 18 points, get knocked out of the Copa by a second division side, lose 4 Clásicos in a single season, sack 2 managers, concede in 10 straight games, and become a punchline in the same Bayern dressing room that used to fear them, that person would have laughed in your face, politely, then ordered another drink. But here we are. Here. The most decorated club in football history has, in the space of 2 seasons, managed to lose the one thing that money cannot buy back. Respect. Once you have it, opponents make mistakes against you. They tighten up. They concede space. They lose before kickoff. Once you do not have it, the opposite happens. Suddenly, Mallorca walks onto the pitch believing they can win, and they do. Florentino Perez has spent 30 years building the biggest sporting institution on earth. He has also, twice now, been the man at the controls when it cratered into the side of a mountain. The first time he learned, he came back, he rebuilt, he won. Whether he can do it again at 79 years old, with a dressing room that no longer fears the manager and a star player who no longer fears the badge, is the open question of European football right now. Because Real Madrid still have the talent. They have, on paper, one of the 3 best squads in the world. They have the stadium, the brand, the resources. They have everything that is supposed to matter. They just do not anymore have the thing that actually does. And the universe you suspect has been taking notes. If you want to see how the last great Madrid dynasty actually built itself, click on the video on screen now. It breaks down the Zidane era from inside the dressing room. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one. We are tracking this collapse all the way to the end.